Hello and welcome back to another episode of the On the Sideline podcast with Jackson and Kyle. And I am joined here, as always, by Brian Hoyer, the Destroyers' #1 fan. Kyle, how are you doing?
It's been a hard weekend. That was a tough thing to see go down, obviously, this weekend. But it was a good weekend of football. It was a good day of football, really. So I really enjoyed that to come off the Brian Hoyer news.
Yes, I see right in the chat right away. Moochie Studio says CJ Beathard equals Jesus. Yeah, I mean let's just start here. Let's just jump into it. Eagles Niners. It was nearly an all-time great comeback. They were Hail Mary away. We saw Nick Mullins not play very well. Kind of making a quarterback controversy in the wrong direction with going to 2 versus 3 as opposed to 1 versus 2. What were your initial thoughts about just this game in general?
The Eagles are winning the division, baby.
Yeah.
That's how it worked out. I mean, I wasn't impressed with either of these teams really in this one. I was really impressed with Brandon Ayuk. And I was really impressed with George Kittle, but that's not really as shocking as the other one. But I mean, I just think that I thought both defense played pretty well, but I thought both front fours played pretty well. Nick Mullins obviously, squashed and he thought that he might take over for Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
He did not look good too. I mean, it's one thing to throw interceptions because, no one expected Nick Mullins to play perfect, but those were just egregiously bad throws. And one of them was in the red zone, which cost you points. So you cost yourself points there. CJ Beathard he could fit a semi-truck into the end zone on that 2-point conversion attempt and tries to flick it to George Kittle.
Yeah.
That cost him 2 points that could have kicked the field goal to tie. I mean, all of those things that happen, and, the 49ers still lost by 5 points without 2 of their best players.
Yeah, it was just I think a very, very fun game. I think that my biggest takeaway for this is that the Eagles are still alive here. I know that this is, I get San Francisco is banged up. I think this is a promising win for Philadelphia. You beat a good team, which is mostly healthy. They don't have their quarterback, but they've never been a quarterback-driven team. They do have, obviously, Bosa's out. But, I think this is a good win for them, especially just given how the rest of their division is doing.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, Carson wasn't by any means perfect in this game, but I thought it was a bounce back performance based on some of his previous performances this season. I looked at the box score, and Miles Sanders had 46-yard rushing, only 30 yards through the air. I don't know why, but I felt like he had a lot more than that. I feel like he's such an important part of this offense and his performance. Even in, a lackluster running game, I thought that he looked good out there. I mean, the NFC East, it's not going to take a lot to win it. And there's no reason to think that with the way Dallas plays defense, this team can't do it because they have plenty of pieces that this should win at least 8-9 games or 8-7 games. And that should be enough to win this division.
Yes. This is completely unrelated, but Washi telling me to grow a Ryan Fitzpatrick beard. Could be you. I think you guys all saw how my attempt at a beard worked. I think I'm going to just start shaving. But yes, no, I mean, we have to talk about one of the greatest plays ever with the Brandon Ayuk, where he breaks 2 tackles, gets into open space. Then there's a one guy to beat and hurdles over a safety. Just a stupid play by future rushing champ Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, he it was a night. I'm going to pat myself on the back here, snagging him in fantasy and throwing him in my starting lineup real quick. That was an incredible play. I mean, he did stuff like that over and over again at Arizona State. And, he almost single-handedly eviscerated Oregon last year when Oregon was playing for a playoff spot. And then now he just comes in here and he looks awesome right away. I mean, I don't know how the 49ers, I feel like 49ers in Pittsburgh have something on wide receivers that nobody else has because they manage to just find these guys time and time again. And I just think once Debo's healthy and Ayuk is able to get going, especially with Kittle, that's almost just unfair. Getting those 3 guys, it's going to be nuts. I think this team's going to be loaded, especially when Garoppolo and Mostert comes back.
Yeah, no, I mean, I do agree. And I almost wonder if part of why people were a little bit low, I don't follow college as closely. I mostly just look at the top prospects in each draft. But I almost wonder if there's something about the way that N'Keal Harry sort of didn't have a great rookie season, if that almost scared people away from AU because they are, similar prospects and from the same school.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. I mean, I think Ayuk was always I thought he was always way more athletic than Harry. Harry is more of that kind of like big possession receiver, but they do look pretty similar. I mean, it's interesting. I don't know exactly. I mean, obviously, if anybody could scout, I feel like it would be a lot easier job. There'd be no bust in the draft. But, for some reason, these guys just work out. I thought he played well. And I mean, there's one thing I do want to talk about as it goes to this game towards the end. I believe this is my working theory that I've had for a number of years. I want to throw it past you. You're probably going to think I'm crazy. So I believe that the Hail Mary is run inefficiently because they all believe it's too inefficient play to practice. So here's my working theory. This is how I would run a Hail Mary, and this is how I would run it every time. I would choose my 4 biggest receivers and put them at the 2-yard line in a big clump, attract everybody to that big clump at the 2-yard line, with one guy trying to sneak into the back of the end zone and just pretty much tip drill it to him in the back and hope that works out. And on the defensive side, I know this one was a little closer, so it changes things a little bit, but I would blitz 6 guys every time because especially when it's like 50-yard play, by the time that nobody's getting downfield 50 yards by the time they that 6 pass rusher gets to the quarterback. So I just feel like that both sides are looking at this way too inefficiently. And then once again, you saw all these guys run to the middle or run to one spot in the end zone. And it looked like Kittle actually took the ball out of Debo's hands on that Hail Mary play. I would completely change how teams assess the Hail Mary. That's my working theory.
Yes, I like this. Blitzing 6 didn't work out too well for the Arizona Cardinals against Aaron Rodgers that one year. But as a whole, I think there is logic there. Here's my theory. How about this? While we're getting into ideas, how about you have your quarterback intentionally throw the ball just outside the back of the end zone, but you have another receiver run over, jump out of the end zone, catch it before touching the ground, and then try to throw it to one of your guys standing a little bit off to the side, still in the end zone.
That'd be impressive too. I'd be really. The problem is you need like 1 or 2 receivers that could probably do that in the league, and like have the coordination to pull that off. But yeah, I'd be all for it. I'd love seeing Julio Jones just try and like stretch 5 yards deep in the end out of bounds and just tip it to a guy back in the end zone.
Exactly. Yes. Okay. Well, I think that let's do another hour on ideas about Hail Marys. We will go on. Any final thoughts on the Sunday night game before we get into some of the craziness that happened earlier on in the day?
I just want to see how the momentum here goes for the Eagles. I really like, I like Doug Peterson a lot in the offseason. I talked about that. I criticized him his first couple of weeks. I thought he coached this game very well. He was aggressive when he needed to be. I'm curious to see how they can build momentum off of this win on the road.
Yes, should be very fun. Let's move on to what a crazy game happened in Jerry World. Browns at Cowboys. Final score ends up being 49-38. There's about 1,000 stories on how we got there. Just looking at the statistics, you look at the score, you think, wow, Baker Mayfield must have had an incredible day. He doesn't even get over 6 yards per attempt. He has 165 yards on 30 attempts. But this Browns running game, completely unstoppable, over 8 yards per attempt. They had more yards running the ball on a play than passing the ball on a play. And weirdly enough, despite the 49 spot, I didn't think Baker had his best day. He wasn't there. He was solid, but also some other stuff. Prescott had over 500 yards, becomes the first quarterback ever to have over 450 yards in 3 straight games. Also, most passing yards ever through 4 games, and still loses by 11. So much craziness. I just getting into it, really. What were your thoughts on this game?
Well, you said Prescott has the most passing yards through 4 games. That's the most passing yards through 4 games. His team's 1-3 and a goofy onside kick away from being 0-4.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I mean, this game on the weird scale was like an 8.5 normally, but for the Cowboys, this weird scale is probably like a 4.5. The Cowboys can't stop anybody. And I mean, I'm taking a huge, instead of a victory lap, I'm taking like a victory naked mile with this one, because here in this game, I had Dak Prescott show out and I had Cleveland show out here with Kevin Stefanski calling the perfect game, I thought. So I'm taking a huge victory naked mile here. I mean, it was weird. I thought they would go to Kareem Hunt more with Chubb out, and then Dernish Johnson comes out of nowhere and just starts wreaking havoc on the Cowboys, which, wreaking havoc on the Cowboys defense doesn't mean much. I love the play call at the end of the game with Odell Beckham because, it was dangerous. It was completely risky. But at the same time, if you run the ball for 1 yard or if you lose 5 yards, it really makes no difference because the only job is to run the clock. So you're isolating your best player in a situation where he's just going to go out and try and make a play, but also keep the clock running without having to ask, the Browns are doing a good job. This is what I said in the offseason they had to do, is essentially don't let Baker Mayfield make a whole lot of decisions, because that's usually when the Browns games ended badly, was when Baker Mayfield has to make a ton of choices. And he made the bare minimum of choices, and they just ran all over the Cowboys. I just think that this Browns team's good, man. I mean, you can fault them for the fourth quarter where the Cowboys scored 24 points, but that's just the Cowboys offense. That's just what they do. This Browns team's good.
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been very impressed with what this Browns team has been able to do. I mean, we'll start at the positives. Again, the fact that Chubb went down with an injury too, who I literally think he's the best back in football, just pure rushing wise, and the fact they were able to still have so much success through the ground game. Obviously, one of that was a big Odell Beckham run, which is a bit misleading, but nevertheless, Dearness Johnson was great. Kareem Hunt was great. And again, Baker Mayfield, he did miss that one throw that was a bad one, but I thought he played well. This offensive line is looking fantastic. I mean, this is what we hope the Cleveland Browns could be. Baker making a couple big throws and staying out of the way for the most part. You have the running game being electric and the offensive line being electric. I think there's concerns on the defensive side of the ball. I think that, yes, the Dallas offense is incredible. Still, I think both defenses did not look great. Let's not forget Dallas did have a 14-7 lead before giving up 24 to nothing in the second quarter. But honestly, this felt like a college football game. With neither defense. I mean, especially with the way that the Browns were rushing the ball for first downs on every play. It felt very, very bizarre. This did not feel like NFL.
Yeah, I mean, so I think that, especially for the AFC, I think one of the things I felt like after watching these morning slate of games is I felt like week 4 was our real opportunity to kind of weed out the fake teams from the real teams. And honestly, I feel like through 4 weeks, we're kind of in the same boat of we know exactly who we like in the AFC. So I feel like that there's 9 teams really in contention for the AFC playoff spots, for the 7 spots. And essentially you had, I believe if I go back to preseason predictions, you had the Titans and the Raiders in, and had the Patriots and the Browns out. And I had the Browns and the Patriots in while having the Raiders and the Titans out. So, I mean, I just feel like those are the 9 teams in the AFC. We're going to talk about all of them, but I feel like the Browns, I think my takeaway from this game was, even though, Cowboys defense is just an abomination, I still feel like the Browns are one of those 9 teams that are going to be in contention throughout the season. People love to make fun of this franchise, and rightfully so. Baker is in way too many commercials. It's annoying sometimes. But this team is, I think, legitimately good and a legit, at least 9-win team this season.
Yeah, I think if I recall, we both had Denver in the playoffs.
Well, Denver was the 10th team that kind of, the injuries took them out. So
yeah, I think you had the Colts as well. So that's the prediction looking good. But yeah, yeah. I mean, listen, I think I'm in the weird spot where I'm one of the few people that isn't a big fan of Baker Mayfield's play, but likes him as a personality. I feel like usually it's like, I feel like it seems like a lot of people are like the opposite. Like I don't know, but yeah, this good statement win for Cleveland. They're for real. They're for real.
Yeah, I think so. And then the Cowboys, of course. I mean, is this going to get fixed at all?
No. The Cowboys always do this. Every year they do this. Like, when are people going to start realizing that the Cowboys always do this?
I feel like the Cowboys are the perfect example of what happens if a fan with unlimited resources builds their whole team. Oh, wait, that's exactly what they are. A fan with unlimited resources builds their whole team. They have a terrific offense, but they have 2 linebackers on defense that they pretty much rely on to keep the defense together, and they're hurt all the time. So, I mean, that's basically this team in a nutshell.
Yeah, exactly. Let's move on now. Let's talk about a game that really did cheer me up after a frustrating battle with YouTube on Twitter, if anyone saw that. Tampa Bay were looking very bad at a certain point. We're down. They gave up 24 straight points, was down 24-7. And then Tom Brady figured out exactly how to attack this Los Angeles defense. And I have to say, Kyle, Tom Brady it's insane what he's been able to do. I mean, what he was able to do the second half of this game, I believe his final line was 15 for 17, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions with a perfect passer rating, which that better be a perfect passer rating. If that's not, your system is broken. I mean, just an incredible day. And the way that he's found these subtleties where he started noticing where the safeties were cheating to. He was attacking open guys. He wasn't, Mike Evans was also incredible with the way that he was taking on double teams, even with clearly an injury. Just what a warrior he had. And Tristan, how about the rookie Tristan Wirfs, right tackle, really holding Joey Bosa in check. I am as excited as a Tampa Bay fan as I have been in quite some time, despite the fact that we gave up 31 points to a not very good offense.
Yeah, I mean, I have zero gauge for this Chargers team. It feels like now, they look excellent in losses. I feel like against really good football teams because I'm a big, I picked the Bucs to win the division. I've been a big believer in this team. They're starting to figure it out on offense, which I said was going to take time, and it seems like now, even without. They still don't have all of their pieces on offense, but they're still figuring everything out. This is just I think this is a fantastic team. They looked really good. Brady, for all the talk about Breeze and how much he struggled at his age, Brady, is the arm velocity not the same as it used to be? Probably, but at the same time, the ball still gets there when he needs it to. He's already, he loves these short receivers. Scotty Miller's turning into a star. He uses his tight ends better than anybody in the league. He's got everything going for him, and I think that this team's going to be absolutely phenomenal this season. I don't see any reason why they don't win this division or even win this conference right now at this rate.
Yeah, I mean, the one concern I think it's fair to have is that, it looks like we can't get beat with speed over the top. That is a way that Herbert was able to really have success. And we can shift and we'll talk about Herbert for a second. I mean, that guy is on just trying to make every analytics guy, everyone in the media look stupid after, none of us liked him getting picked when he got picked, and he is proving us all wrong, and it's pretty fun to see.
Yeah, and I think, it's almost as simple as, you have a really good player in Keenan Allen, why not use him? And that was something that Tyrod Taylor didn't do in week 1. And then, what was it? 25 pass attempts for Herbert, 12 of them were targets to Keenan Allen. He's just making the right read and hitting the right guy when he needs to. I'm curious to see how this will work out without Austin Eckler. It seems like it's going to be for a while, which is kind of a bummer because I really liked him to start this season. But he's doing a good job of getting his players or getting his best players opportunities to succeed, and he's making really good throws. That long touchdown, I forgot who he threw it to. That was just on a rope. There's not a lot of guys in the NFL who can make that throw.
Yeah, and especially, Tyrod Taylor is not making that throw. One bad news for Tampa Bay. Looks like O.J. Howard tore his Achilles. He's done for the season. Once again, the guy can't seem to stay healthy. The nice thing is this is why you have tight end depth with Gronkowski and Brate. And I thought Gronkowski played well. I thought Gronkowski, he didn't necessarily show up in the stat sheet, but did a lot of things very well. He was also huge in the blocking game, which is very important against the Chargers. And he had a couple of really good routes that, one took away the safety where O.J. Howard ended up scoring a touchdown on. So, this is just, again, this offense is great. And, there was a point when I remember thinking, like, when we were down 24-7, I was kind of like, this is kind of where I miss Winston. When you get down big, he's someone he'll throw you back into the game. But the difference is that Brady's not only able to throw you back into the game, but he doesn't, then make it more difficult on himself with throwing a pick 6 midway through to now make it a 7-point bigger deficit. So yeah, just a lot of fun. Basically, this is just me realizing what it's like to have a good quarterback, and it's a very fun time.
Yeah, you might as well enjoy it here for these last 2 years of his career. He's been good, and obviously, this team is still going to be working towards getting to their peak potential once they get Godwin back and get that team working. I'm really excited for this offense. I think this is going to be scary good. I think people were kind of sleeping on the Brady regression. You just have to look at the players he was thrown to last year, especially when N'Keal Harry, who's been, I think, actually a bright spot for the Patriots, missed all of training camp. So Brady had no time to work with him, and he missed half the season as well. So I just think that this is going to be a huge year for Brady. I mean, he's working into becoming back to one of the best quarterbacks in the league where he belongs.
Yes, it'll be interesting to see what they do. Thursday Night Football against the Bears should be a fun game. So yeah, let's move on now. Let's see. Let's talk. How about let's talk about the game that we made a bet on last week's show, where I had the Giants plus 14.5. So you get an extra miss this week because of this prediction. Kind of a weird thing about this game is it kind of seems like the biggest story about this is what happened after the game with the brawl that kind of went on between Jalen Ramsey and Golden Tate. There was also Aaron Donald and Nick Gates got into it. Kind of crazy stuff that happened there, but also I thought a fun game, albeit a low scoring one.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know about the whole Golden Tate Jalen Ramsey history. I felt like that was pretty interesting to read up on real quick. Right. So it was interesting. I mean, my takeaway from this, Goff threw 7 incompletions, but there are times when, I believe in Goff being being able to win a Super Bowl kind of quarterback, but there are just times where he's out there where a defense should never be intimidated by him dropping back to pass. And I feel like this was one of those games. I feel like, Kupp made the great play on the last touchdown to get to 17, but there was just so many passes where I'm like, what is this accomplishing? He's throwing these dink and dunks. He's terrified to stretch the field against a bad Giants defense. This cost me a lot of money too, so I was really upset about it. Not even just the prediction part for our thing. I had a big parlay that was about to hit as long as they cover at 13, and this was the one thing that didn't cover because he failed to threaten the Giants defense that gave up points to everybody so far this season.
Well, I don't know. I don't hate I'm much higher on the Giants defense than you are. I do think this secondary is very good. I think they had a bad week last week, but I thought they played well against Pittsburgh, despite the fact that the final score was 26-16. And they only gave up 17 to the Bears, but I almost feel like that's a bad score against Chicago. But I don't know. I mean, I think the Giants defense is all right. To me, I think this shows that the Giants aren't the Jets. The Giants are a competitive team that will win 3 or 4 games this year. They're not the Jets who, if they go 1-15, Adam Gase overperforms. I feel like there's a big disparity between these two teams. I do think the Giants I thought both defenses played well. I thought that neither team took too many deep shots. I do think this is a bit of a disappointment for the Rams, only winning by 8. But you know what? It's the NFL. Sometimes you don't win the games the way you're supposed to. As long as you get out of there for a win, it's not the end of the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I'm probably over-exaggerating the Giants here. I guess my question for you would be on this one is Daniel Jones the Giants quarterback next season?
Is he Week 1? Giants? As of right now, if he plays the way he's been playing for the rest of the season, I would say yes. I think that he's not perfect. He has a lot of problems. But I just think that there's enough other problems that I think they're going to give him another year. You have to give these young guys time. And that's why I don't like drafting young quarterbacks, or I don't like drafting old quarterbacks either. Shout out Brandon Whedon. But that's why I don't like drafting quarterbacks, because I just don't like waiting around for 3-4 years hoping they end up being good. I'd rather just sign a top 15 guy and call it a day. But then again, sometimes that's easier said than done. But
if only every team could sign Tom Brady when he's available,
Well, yeah, but really, that's the mindset I have. Is just go out and get if there's a Tom Brady available, don't worry about trying to develop a young guy. Don't worry about maybe Jameis Winston will be better this year. Go out and sign Tom Brady when he's out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I just, miraculously, he didn't fumble the ball and lose it today. He did fumble, but he got it back.
Yes,
miraculously, he didn't lose a fumble this week. But yeah, I mean, he continues to take bad sacks. He continues to cough up the football. I mean, it just, killing drive after drive. I know losing Saquon obviously hurts, but you got to put your team in a chance to put one drive together.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right about that. His pocket presence is abysmal. I know people are going to blame the line, but he needs to figure out and he needs to figure it out quickly. Also, fun fact: Daniel Jones is the Giants' leading rusher. So maybe move him to halfback. Maybe he's playing the wrong position.
Yeah. Giving his fumble history, I wouldn't put him at halfback at
all. Yes. All right. Well, let's move on here. Let's talk about this. Was a big one. This was I called it a loser leaves town game the week prior. I'm talking Vikings, Texans. Minnesota survives. They defeat the Texans. I thought this was a pretty interesting game. You see both. I felt the key difference in this game was that the Vikings stuck with what they're good at. The Texans keep trying to establish something that they're not good at. Where Minnesota, 40 of their 62 plays were running plays. Now, 4 of those were from Cousins, but almost 2/3 of their plays are them rushing the football, which is what they're good at. For whatever reason, Bill O'Brien keeps trying to establish the run. Like, there was one good play action late in the game, but it's just the benefits of the play action, they almost never work. I mean, there's certain plays when, like, literally you're seeing Minnesota drop back in coverage immediately. They're not even concerned whatsoever. They know it's not going to be a run. Like, I just feel like I know what Bill O'Brien's trying to do, but at a certain point, you got to realize it's not working and just trust your star quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I heard this whole theory that you should draft David Johnson in fantasy because Bill O'Brien's going to try and justify the trade by running him into the ground this season. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it doesn't matter. You could give him 100 carries and he's going to average 3 yards a carry. So, yeah. I mean, it's such a bad situation. I mean, I'm not going to pretend like I can go out there and coach an NFL team, but there's just some bad coaching, man. There's just some bad coaching, and Bill O'Brien's right at the top of the list. And I mean, I know the ownership situation is weird, so who knows what happens with his situation going forward, but I just feel like his days are numbered. And yeah, this is a cross-off team. There's 2 good teams in the AFC South. We mentioned that there's probably 9 teams competing for a playoff spot, and it's not Houston anymore, despite having the franchise quarterback, which is the one thing that every team competes or looks for, is that franchise quarterback. They have that, but they have nothing else. And this crazy thing is that the Dolphins have their first-round pick next year.
Yeah, no, and their second-round pick as well. So this is a rough situation. You do have to start to wonder if they, it's 0-4. Is Bill O'Brien on the hot seat? I also think it's fair to say that that's not a job a lot of people want, despite the fact that literally probably a top 7 quarterback is in that building. I think a lot of people still wouldn't want it because the way to have no draft capital and not a ton of talent. But even with this, I mean, listen, I thought that Minnesota was clearly the better team. There were a couple of defensive breakdowns by Minnesota, which sort of let Houston back in it. And Houston was a yard away from tying up this game. I mean, this was, at the end of the day, still a very close game. But Minnesota was able to just barely, even though, it was initially called a touchdown, gets overturned, and Minnesota is able to get the victory.
Yeah, I mean, with Minnesota, their defense still remains kind of iffy, I guess is the nice way of putting it. Will Fuller still had a big game in this one, but you hit it right on the head at the beginning of this. They're establishing what they do best. They lost Diggs, they lost Stefanski for that offensive side of the ball, and they're kind of these last 2 weeks I was impressed with their offense. Cook has looked really good these last 2 weeks. Thielen and Jefferson I thought have looked good these last 2 weeks, and that's been the biggest difference. They've started to figure these things out on the offensive side of the ball, and maybe this team battles back a little because I think that they are talented enough on offense to make a run at it. But the defense just, if they can't get going on defense, they need Danielle Hunter back bad. And it's bad if you're relying on one guy to change your whole defense around.
Yeah. I mean, if you are going to rely on a guy, that's a pretty good, guy to rely on. But yeah, I do agree. Jefferson now has back-to-back games of over 100 yards. He's been very good. And Kirk Cousins, again, he's another one of those guys similar to Baker Mayfield, where the less you rely on him, the better he is. I think Cousins even more so, where 22 attempts, he gets 260 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions. If you can establish the running game, it's hard to beat this Minnesota team. And they're playing Seattle next week, which should be a very interesting game. I think that Minnesota does have a shot in this game. You say no, but I think they have a shot. And if they can find a way to pull it off, I mean, this is a whole new world for them.
I mean, they could. I guess they have a shot because I think this offense, like I said, is figuring it out. They're playing, not only are they like scoring points and getting some yards, but, like you said, with limiting a lot of Cousins' touches, they're playing at a hyper efficient level right now. This was a very efficient offensive game. But this secondary against Russell Wilson just seems like bad news. That if they can't figure that out next week, that's going to be a huge problem. So.
Well, yeah, I'm not going to bet on them, but I do think that there is. I think there's a real opportunity here for them to do something. But yeah, we'll see. Let's move on now. Let's. I didn't put these in order beforehand, so I'm trying to figure these out in real time. Let's talk some Saints Lions. How about this? So the Lions basically get they basically are spotted a 14 spot. There was a big play by Amendola, and then immediately after, Drew Brees throws an interception. Detroit's up 14-0, where they would then go on to give up 35 straight points to the New Orleans Saints. This is a fun game, actually. It was a weird game, another weird game. For one thing, Drew Brees had a pass for over 20 yards, so give him some credit on that one. And I also like how Stafford at a certain point went full gunslinger. I think I almost feel like he just like doesn't care anymore and just wants to just try to figure out if he can do something. He's throwing all over the place. I think he only had one interception, but he went full gunslinger in this game, and it was very fun.
He's trying to show out for which team's trying to get a team to trade for him next season. Probably.
Yeah.
He's like, come save me, please. I mean, Drew Brees must have iced his elbow a lot this week because, he uncorked a couple, he got some mustard behind a few. I thought Traquan Smith was awesome. Shout out to UCF. I thought he looked really good in this one. He had the 2 touchdowns. And, with Thomas out, Alvin Kamara just continues to step up and be extraordinary right now. So, I mean, that's the big thing with this team is Kamara is carrying this offense and Detroit is Detroit. So here we go. Here's my question for you. Would you trust Matt Patricia to walk your dog down the street?
How busy of a street is it?
Is
it abandoned? Maybe if there's one car like a day, maybe.
Okay, if you're hosting a party, do you trust Matt? The person who's the least reliable gets ice and the plasticware. Do you trust Matt Patricia to get the ice and plasticware for a party?
He would show up an hour late with a receipt. Like you just know it.
What else do I got here? Do you trust Matt Patricia to host a book club?
Probably. I mean, I want to go to the book club, so go ahead, do whatever you want.
Do you trust Matt Patricia to read at the book club?
I think he'd grab I interrupted you. Think he'd grab his pencil and like write in the book, like with from his
he's
ear?
Definitely a note taker with that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think that the one thing I liked from Patricia was the go for 2 after the touchdown to cut it to 6. I thought that was a fun play. I think they did this last year too because I was reading up a little bit on it. But they cut it to 6, but obviously they didn't get the ball back, so it didn't really matter in the end. But I think that's always a great play call. So give him credit for that. But he still blew a 14-0 lead right off the bat.
Yeah, I'm at the point now where I don't give you credit for doing it. I blame you if you don't do it, because you should just always do it. I mean, I made a video on this where the numbers are insanely high. Where I don't know the exact like point decimals, but it was if you're in that situation, you score 2 touchdowns. If door A is you kick the extra point every time, that gives you a 49% chance to win because you could miss an extra point, but they'll probably go to overtime where it's a 50-50 shot. But if you go for it, then you have a 73% chance to win because either you'll make it, which you 50-50 shot, or you still have the opportunity to make it the second time. So the numbers are just say absolutely yes, go for it.
You don't even need to look at the numbers. Just look at the logic to it. You score 2 points, you get 2 yards. You essentially need to go down and score, get the ball one more time, go down and score and win the game. If you don't get the 2 yards, you still have to go down, score, and then get the 2 yards a second, or try and get the 2 yards that time to get the game to overtime, which is the same thing you do if you kick the extra point. So it makes sense either way. So I just think that the logic to it is just saying go for 2 every time you're down 14 and score.
Yes. The great Ben Noodle Man says, do you trust Matt Patricia to sort your laundry?
No, everything's coming out pink in that regard.
Yeah, and I don't even have red. I don't know how he did that. Yes, we can. We'll move on now. The good segment. What do you trust Matt Patricia with? Let's talk some Bills Raiders. Looked like for a second there, very scary situation. Looked like we could have our leading MVP candidate go down with an injury, but Josh Allen is okay. Nobody be afraid. Yeah, this was again. This is the Raiders, what they did last week, where they were competitive, and then it just sort of fell apart late in the game. And it was just frustrating to see. You can't turn the ball over in the fourth quarter when it's a competitive game. You just can't do it.
Yeah, the fumbles the last 2 weeks have really just killed this team. Mm-hmm. And, it killed him here. I thought Carr was good. He threw the one pass to Renfro on the sideline. That was just ridiculous. But at the end of the day, I mean, it was good, but yeah, you can't turn the ball over, especially, we talked about the Raiders as, could they make the playoffs? You said they're a team that you think can make a huge leap, be a playoff team. But when they're playing these good teams, it's these mental mistakes that cost them. And if they want to be a team that wins 10 games, they can't make those mistakes. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, and it's disappointing because obviously I was very pro Raiders just because of all the off-season stuff, or preseason stuff, I guess. And they start off 2-0 with a big win over the Saints. They're looking great. But now they play the Chiefs and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers the next 2 weeks. They could easily find themselves 2-4. And this is kind of what you talked about preseason, where their schedule does get a lot easier in the second half, but it almost feels like they got to find a way to win one of those 2 games and be 3-3 before they can get to that easy part of the schedule.
I agree 100%. This is the most difficult start of the schedule. I mean, they're already playing with house money, I think, because they got the win against New Orleans, but maybe New Orleans isn't as good as we thought. But yeah, I mean, I do think that they need to win one of these 2 games because, like I said, there's 9 teams I feel like in this AFC I'm confident about are going to compete for a playoff spot. So it's essentially just keeping up with those 9 teams and being one of the top 7. So the way to beat out the other 2 teams is obviously to win football games, as cliched as it sounds. And, I think that right now they're behind of the teams we look at. They're behind Cleveland by a game, and they're behind half a game to New England. We'll see their result. Obviously, New England might be 2-2 with them, but New England does hold the tiebreaker.
Yeah, it's very interesting. And, let's flip to the other side now because I think this is a good week for Buffalo. Another good week for Buffalo. They've had a lot of good weeks so far. Where it's looking like New England's going to, they don't have their starting quarterback. It's you don't expect to win. You hope to win. Don't expect to. But also, Josh Allen is continuing to just play really good football. And I think at this point, it's not a meme anymore. He's an MVP candidate. He's second in the league in the passing yards, but he's doing it on insane efficiency where, Dak Prescott, I believe he has like 8.2 yards per attempt, something like that, which is still very good for his volume. But Josh Allen has over 9 yards per attempt and still has over 1,000, or he still has whatever it is, but it's still second in the league in passing yards. It's just, it's an incredible start to the season, and Diggs another over 100-yard game. That connection has really worked well for them.
Yeah, Diggs has been so incredible for how much he's changed this offense. And the other thing is that Allen has simply completed more passes. We made fun of his completion percentage all the time. The simple way to fix that is go out and complete more passes, and he's doing that. He's doing it at a much higher rate, and I think that he did look good in this game. It's like I have to separate myself almost because he still makes, he didn't turn the ball over in this game, but he still makes some boneheaded plays. Like he took a horrible sack on a third down that there was like a minus 17-yard loss on third down that completely moved him out of field goal range. But you almost just have to remove that from the equation because he makes so many good plays because he's so athletic and awesome. He keeps making all these plays and, Buffalo didn't run the ball well, and they still dominated or not dominated, but the offense still played really well in this game without being able to establish really much of a running game.
Yeah, and let me ask you too. It's like with Josh Allen, can we confidently say that he makes less dumb? Can we confidently say that he makes more dumb decisions than Deshaun Watson now? Deshaun Watson runs into trouble all the time. I feel like it's interesting who we make excuses for. Like most quarterbacks do make dumb mistakes, and I almost feel like. And I still thought that his week 1 performance wasn't very good. But I think it is fair to say at this point that, the good by far and away outweighs the bad. He's not making that much more mistakes than your average quarterback. And when he's good, he's great.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I guess I have to change the fact because not to sound like a snob fan here, but I did watch Tom Brady for 20 years, who virtually makes no mistakes. And, I was watching this Monday night game, and it was like Carson Wentz and Nick Mullins at times were just taking egregiously bad sacks too. And those are just sacks that a guy like Brady doesn't take. But at the same time, if you're this athletic as a guy like Watson and Allen and can come back on a 3rd and 17 after a bad sack and make an 18-yard completion look like nothing, then it doesn't really matter. So, he continues to make plays and, make up for the fact that even if he does make a bad mistake, he can still come back and make an awesome play to make up for it. So it doesn't matter at the end of the day because he is making those plays.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Tom Brady for 4 weeks now, so I think we're both on the same page there. We'll move on now. Both spoiled with our having rooted for Tom Brady for so long. We'll move on now. We'll talk. Let's talk Cardinals Panthers, an NFC championship rematch from back when the Cam Newton Panthers blew out the Bruce Arians Cardinals. This was a disappointing game for Arizona, and a team that had playoff aspirations and started off 2-0 has now lost a couple of games that they were favored in. I mean, part of it was, I think a big part of this was just third downs. Arizona was only 3 for 9 on third downs. Also worth mentioning, Carolina did a very good job. Arizona. Carolina did a very good job of controlling the game. Once they went up, they limited possession severely. Arizona only got the ball 9 times, so they scored a touchdown on a third of their possessions. They just didn't get the ball that much. And Kyler Murray, I think he was better than his numbers would say, but he still had 4.2 yards per attempt, which is definitely, that's on the Around the NFL podcast, they call below 5 yards per attempt the Blaine Gabbert zone. So well into the Blaine Gabbert zone for Murray.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, they was I do feel like that for the most part, this was kind of a situation where I lost my train of thought here for a second, but the Cardinals can't stop anybody. So maybe they did start 2-0 and everyone kind of overreacted to that start. But if they can't stop anybody on defense, it doesn't matter how awesome Kyler works. And, Carolina just doesn't make mistakes. So it's hard if you can't stop anybody and the team's not going to make any mistakes, then you're going to lose the game because they're going to get so much time of possession and so many yards just basically doing their thing.
Yeah, and I like Emin Report said Matt Rule is a good coach. Rule has done a very good job, and I even thought that it wasn't just offensively this game. I thought defensively they both had the perfect game plans. Whereas Carolina Panthers defense, they don't have a ton of talent, but they kind of just had the mindset of, we're just going to take away everything deep. We're going to play cover 3. We're going to play quarters. They play a lot of quarters coverage, and kind of just said, listen. It's hard for you to run against zone. It's hard. You can't throw deep against zone. If you want to try and methodically work down the field, we'll let you do that. But we trust that we can get off the field enough times. Yetur Gross Matos had a strip sack in this game. There was a bad call, which meant that Carolina was not able to. They blew it dead, so Carolina wasn't able to continue running with it, which I would be frustrated if I was a Panthers fan, but not that frustrated because they still scored a touchdown on that drive. I thought this was a really, really good win from both sides of the ball. Cardinals defense looked disappointing. And yeah, I mean, listen, I get that the numbers weren't great. I didn't think Murray was that bad. And he also did have 78 rushing yards.
Yeah, I mean, I thought he was fine. But yeah, if they can't stop anybody and he's got to, stretch the field more and go downfield, which he clearly just didn't do in this one, which ultimately hurt them. I mean, I think my one takeaway from this game was that this was a really bad week. I felt like this could be overreacting a little bit, but I'm going to say it anyway because I love the hot take. Mm-hmm. This was a really bad week for running backs looking for contract extensions because the Browns went out and looked awesome on offense when Nick Chubb went down. Now, of course, their backup running back is still the best running back in the game. Yes, I'm calling you out, Ezekiel Elliott. Kareem Hunt's the best running back on that field, even when Chubb goes down. And then, Panthers are 2-0 without Christian McCaffrey. Right. It's just proven the point that maybe running backs aren't as essential to success.
I think that point's been proven for a while now. I think we know that. Yeah. But yeah. Right. So yeah, any final thoughts? I also see, worth mentioning, Cardinals had the ball for under 23 minutes. So, I know time of possession is kind of a bit misleading because sometimes it's how much do incomplete pass, but still crazy stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's interesting. So do you still feel like Carolina's kind of a distant third in this division?
I'm not 100% convinced they're not fourth just yet. I think they probably are. I think they're a much better coach team, but I still think this is a rebuilding team. I think that there's a chance. I'm impressed with what they've done these past 2 weeks. I could easily see them ending up being like now that I see it more and more. I like what their defense is doing a lot better. I could see them going like 8-8. I still have maybe they can find a way to squeak in if they get very lucky, but I think they're probably going to end up still with like a 6-10, but a competitive 6-10.
A frisky season. 6-10, like a Miami season last year.
Yes, exactly. Right. They're going to be competitive losers, I think, throughout. Maybe like, could even talk about like the rookie season Baker Mayfield Browns, one of those types of teams.
Yeah, Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. Because I mean, talent-wise, obviously, it's no competition between obviously Tampa, New Orleans, and then you look at Carolina's roster. But they are winning football games right now, and that's what's most important. I feel like this game was more telling towards the Cardinals than it was about the Panthers.
Yeah, and hey, technically tied with the Saints right now, and only one game out of a playoff spot. So,
Yeah.
looking good. Let's talk about a team that couple 3-1 teams now. Colts Bears. The Indianapolis Colts. I've been very impressed with what they've done as well. I think that I've been impressed with Philip Rivers. I know the numbers aren't going to be fantastic for him, but I thought that he was, he's doing a good job. Doing what he's supposed to do. Both defenses look great in this game, but also I think from Chicago's perspective, this is, the Bears are who we thought they were. This is a very disappointing offensive showing. They had 11 points, but I mean, 8 of those came very late in the game. And I think this is what we worried about when they went out and got Nick Foles is will the defense or will the offensive supporting cast be good enough, specifically the offensive line? Through 1 week, this experiment is a big no.
Yeah, I mean, the Colts completely shook off any Nick's big dick and just continue to show out on defense. They look like one of the best defenses in the league. And yeah, I mean, the Bears still look bad on offense. It's as simple as that. And I mean, it's almost as simple as the offense looks good when they throw it up to Allen Robinson and hope for the best. And it's almost become that's their best form of offense is just hoping, I don't know what else they can do on offense because, he went up and made a couple incredible catches that last drive because I think he had 3 or 4 catches on that last drive where they got to 11. And then after that, it's just like that was pretty much the entire game for the Bears offense. I mean, give credit to the Colts defense because that secondary flies around. DeForest Buckner looks awesome on that defensive line. So they do a lot of things right. But at the same time, we've talked about the Bears offense looking kind of atrocious throughout. And that was, if you're throwing up to one guy and hoping for the best and that's your offense, that's like pre-Deshaun Watson Houston Texans offense. That's not getting anywhere in the NFL.
Yes, there might be a bit of like it's the Allen Robinson play. It's almost like when you're playing like Super Smash Brothers and you don't play very often, so you just start bashing buttons, and then all of a sudden that starts working better than when you were just playing normally. Yeah, I have a trivia question. So the Bears this game rushed the ball 16 times. How many rushing yards? Give a guess. Well, to try to get within 5, how many rushing yards did they have this game? 16 rushes.
I'm not going to pull up the box score, although I was just scrolling at it, so I might get in the ballpark because of that. I'm going to say like 25.
Yeah, the 28 rushing yards on 16 carries. That's not going to get it done. It really isn't. So give Chicago. Don't give Chicago credit. Give the Colts some credit. They played really well. They're looking like a legit team right now. But yeah, I mean, this is listen. We all kind of said, okay, they're 3-0, but how good are they? They have an opportunity Thursday. Short week, but this is a big one. If they don't, I think this could get ugly quickly for Chicago.
Yeah, I mean they're hoping their defense keeps them in a lot of games. The defense held the Colts to a lot of field goals in this one, but if the offense if the offense is struggling to 15, never mind 20, then they're not going to win a lot of football games throughout the rest of the season.
Yes, I see Sauce Boss in the chat says live look at the Bears QB situation, and then there's a bunch of trash cans emojis. Very, very rude, Sauce Boss. How dare Nick Foles won an MVP, or Super Bowl MVP.
If only there was like a quarterback who was an actual MVP available in like June, that could have been had for like, I don't know, 1 million plus incentives. That might have helped out. I mean, but is that really it though? Because it seems like the Bears for since Rex Grossman are habitually one quarterback away from winning a Super Bowl, or at least that's what everyone wants to think. And it just seems like is that really the only thing that's wrong with this offense? I don't think that they look that good on any face of the ball besides Allen Robinson this week.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's not the only thing. They don't have a running game. They can't block. You can blame the quarterback because, of course, everyone blames the quarterback, but they have a lot of problems. We'll see what they can do against Tampa Bay. That could be really ugly really quickly. From their offensive line against a really good Tampa Bay defensive line. They're going to have to figure something out. All right, so 4 games left. Let's go Seahawks Dolphins here.
Shout out to Washi.
Yes, shout out Washi. This was I think this game was actually a lot more of a shootout than you might think. Looking at the final score of 31-23, both offenses did look very good. You did have a Russell Wilson pick six in the end zone, or not pick six, but pick in the end zone, which was not great. Also, Miami, they had 5 straight field goals before getting a touchdown. So there was a lot of scoring, a lot of offense, just not a ton of touchdowns in this game. But Miami kept it competitive. But as a whole, this is another one of those, a little closer than you might have liked, but 4-0 is 4-0.
Yeah, I mean, Russell Wilson was on pace for 74 touchdowns this season going into this game. And I'm not going to do the math right now, but I mean, he was still really good. Who would have known that his worst game would have been Miami through the first 4 weeks? But having this be your worst game is pretty awesome because he was once again really good. I thought Seattle did a lot of things really good on offense and once again did a lot of things really bad on defense. I think Jamal Adams was out of this game. Obviously, that hurt. But I think that, you're just going to look at, is this team going to figure it out on the defensive side of the ball? I mean, I feel like that's really the only question as they are, eventually going to gear up for the playoffs here. Obviously, it's still way too early. But I feel like this is a Super Bowl team if they can get 3 stops a game. Can they get 3 stops a game right now is the question.
Yeah. I mean, and they had a couple opportunities. Fitzpatrick did give them a couple that they weren't able to take advantage of. Some they were. Also, I meant to talk about this in the Cardinals game, but there was a moment when someone stepped out of bounds, and so the ref had to throw his hat, and he was bald, and I felt very bad for him because he had to take off his hat. I always feel like that's very, very cruel to the bald refs. But yeah, sorry, I really wanted to get that in this podcast. But back to this game. I mean, yeah. I think that there is some real concerns for the Seattle Seahawks defense. And I think I know you're 4-0, but it's kind of crazy that, both the Packers and the Seahawks are kind of similar teams where the offenses are doing great. But it almost feels like the winner of potentially, at least, the Bucs are looking good too. But it could be the winner of the NFC is just which one can get together a somewhat competent defense. Although, for Seattle, to their credit, I know it's Miami, their defensive line did look better this week.
Yeah, I mean, they started to figure some things out. Have they brought in Snacks yet? Are they going to sign him?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I knew that was a rumor, but I mean, yeah, I do think that they're going to need some help at the front. I mean, there's just no way the secondary can honestly be this bad sometimes. I do think that they just need, justice for bald men.
Yes.
Yeah, but I mean, I do think that they, if they can establish at least one solid pass rusher, then this secondary is going to look really good really quick, but they just don't have any right now. So I think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, no, I agree. All right, so we'll move on now. Sorry, Washi, we won't be doing a 30-minute clip on this. I think unless you have anything else you wanted to add about it, I think let's move on now. Let's talk Jaguars Bengals. So a couple young, promising quarterbacks. One was a first overall pick. One was a 6th overall pick. I thought this is a bit of a disappointing day for Jacksonville. Again, Jacksonville it's very bizarre that they beat Indianapolis, and now both of those two teams have just gone in completely opposite directions since then. There was an all-time announcer jinx in this game. I'm not sure if you heard, but the announcer said when Brandon Wilson, kick returner for Cincinnati, was about to get the ball, the announcer said, "Look out, you don't want him to touch the ball." And then he immediately bobbled the kickoff, picked it back up, and then slipped and fell over his own 2 feet. So it was an all-time announcer jinx. But back to football, Jacksonville, a big thing about, again, third downs, only going 2 for 10 on third downs. That's not going to get it done. And on the flip side, for their defensive line, this is a bad Cincinnati offensive line. We talked about that being a big advantage for Jacksonville, but only 1 sack and giving up a lot of yards in the running game. Not going to get it done for Jacksonville. On the bright side, Miles Jack had an incredible interception, but as a whole, a bit of a disappointing game for Jacksonville. But I think this is promising for Cincinnati. And one thing I know I'm talking a lot, sorry, but one thing promising about Cincinnati is I do feel like seeing them with winning the offensive line battle, largely due to not great play from Jacksonville. I think this is kind of a bit optimistic of this could be a peek into the future of if they get a good offensive line, this could be really fun offense to watch.
No, I agree without a doubt. I think, the big thing with, oh man, you guys killing me. So I think the big thing with the Jaguars, is I feel like this was just, the last 2 weeks we saw more of who the Jaguars are compared to weeks 1 and 2, where they were competitive in those games and probably a little overlooked in those divisional games that are always a little closer than what they are. They're obviously close in these last 2 games, or both within single digits. But at the same time, when you have a defense that doesn't have a lot of playmakers, like you said, there's Miles Jack, but there's not a whole lot else on defense. And then you have 2 guys to account for on offense who are once again still really awesome. James Robinson, DJ Chark comes back and was awesome again, but that's pretty much all you have on offense. It's kind of easy to account for. And I think, the Bengals, like you said, the offensive line finally got moving. Joe Mixon came alive in this one. He really needed that offensive line to get going to help him out. I thought he was awesome in this one, and he made things easy for Burrow.
Yes. Washi in the chat says Burrow is my daddy. Kyle, is Burrow your daddy?
Burrow is not my daddy, seeing how I'm older than him, but we'll I mean, he's playing well. I mean, he throws for a ton of yards, and he throws a ton of passes too, but he's making the right plays, I think, over and over again. I think he's doing very good.
Yeah, no, I've been really impressed with what Burrow's been able to do. I think Burrow, I mean, again, I still do feel like he looks like a rookie. Like he makes a ton of rookie mistakes. He still does, but he's a great rookie, and that's what you want. Like I'm not asking you to be a perfect quarterback year 1. I'm asking you to do good things. I still don't know. Again, it's very hard. There's a reason why no one's ever won a Super Bowl as a rookie quarterback. It's very difficult to do, but he's looked great. And Joe Mixon again is Joe Mixon.
Yeah, I mean, I think the one thing I've really liked from Burrow, I think my biggest takeaway, besides obviously, he's working really well with guys like Higgins and Boyd, I think, throughout his first 4 games, is that, we'll see there be no pass rush at all and Baker Mayfield bail from the pocket. I feel like Burrow, despite having the worst O-line in the league, I think, has stood in the pocket really well and made some really good throws, and he seems pretty poised there.
Yes.
So I think that So, I mean, I think that's something that I've been really impressed with him, despite the, not to mention the just overall talent that he possesses on throwing the football in general. Yeah, I mean, I've been really impressed. I think that this is building in the right direction toward being a good team.
Yeah, no, it's very fun to see. We'll see, and I think that their defense is more talented than Jacksonville's as well. Jacksonville, they're a ways away, but I think it's, again, I do think it's worth mentioning. I thought that, Gardner Minshew and James Robinson were really good, but Burrow and Mixon were great. And that was part of the difference in this game as well. Just the Bengals offense, Jacksonville really struggled to stop them.
Do people actually like this? Do people actually like, there's tanking and then there's the Jaguars. They're essentially, there's 4 guys worth keeping on this. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but I'm going to exaggerate anyway. There's 4 guys worth keeping on this team. The rest of them is probably, when this is the finished product, probably isn't going to be there. And those 4 guys probably won't be around long enough for that finished product to materialize. Like, does anybody actually like this sort of tanking where it's essentially just the bare bones of an NFL team with like 3 or 4 promising players?
Well, I think people like it when it's like what Miami did, what the Raiders did, where it's like, we're going to get rid of our good players and get back a ton of assets. So we have a ton of draft picks for the future. But, I mean, Jacksonville kind of did that with Jalen Ramsey. So to have that. But I mean, this isn't necessarily a great promising young team. There's a lot of mistakes I thought they had. But to answer your question, yeah, people love this. People want to see teams that are bad then start to be good. I just don't know if this is the best way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Miami is that they had no players that they thought about keeping around. Like, what is the reason for DJ Chark to want to stick around with this team, or Miles Jack?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a fair. I mean, you're going to have to overpay. I mean, they overpaid for Joe Schobert to come here, who is another good player on this roster. And I'm not saying it's not worth it. I'm just saying, they probably would have been able to pay less had they been a competitive team. I think it's fair to say. But, I mean, it's either this or trade them. I mean, if you're Jacksonville, how about this? Here's a question. If you're Jacksonville, you get the number 1 overall pick. Do you trade the number 1 overall pick, or do you trade Minshew?
I trade Minshew. I'm taking Trevor Lawrence over we both talked about how we like a lot of things that Minshew does, but even without playing an NFL down, I'm taking Trevor Lawrence. I'm sorry. That's just, Trevor Lawrence is in that Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning stratosphere of if you have the number 1 pick, I feel like you take him.
Yeah, fair enough. And, it'd be a good problem to have. Let's move on now. Let's do last game of the day. We're still going to talk about the Thursday night game as well. Ravens, really handled the balls nicely on this one.
Yeah, I mean, this was a game that they needed to bounce back in. They just kind of coasted throughout in this one. Obviously, they jumped out 21-0, and then Dwayne Haskins got some garbage time yards here to make this a little more interesting and probably save his job. So, I mean, he had that going for them. But I thought the Ravens looked good, and like you said, they're the best ball handlers in the league right now.
Yes, I'd not say that, but I think top story about this game, Sam Koch, punter for the Ravens, now a perfect 7 for 7, making him the best passer in NFL history, most accurate passer in NFL history. No one else has a 100% completion percentage that has thrown 7 or more passes. So congratulations to him. I know you probably have tons of thoughts about that.
He must have watched a lot of Nathan Peterman's highlights to be able to get to that level. I mean, those two should have a throw-off. Pick the best punter passer with the worst quarterback and just let them throw and see what happens.
So Johnny Hecker would probably be the guy, right? Because he used to play quarterback. Yeah, I got Peterman. I'd put $1 down on Peterman.
That's not a hot take. I mean, one is an NFL quarterback still. Despite being the worst NFL quarterback in history, he's still an NFL quarterback.
Yes. All right. I thought Haskins played fine. It wasn't a great performance. Again, he's kind of in that weird spot where he's not very intelligent, but he makes up for it by not being very accurate, which is it's a rough spot for a quarterback. I thought it was fine. I mean, again, do I think it's possible in several years that Haskins could end up developing into the guy that I hope he can be? I think it's possible. I just don't know if it's worth waiting around. But if you're Washington, I mean, what do you have to lose? Might as well. Terry McLaurin, another 100-yard game. He's quietly turning, just having great season after great season. And I actually thought that for Baltimore, it's not a total win. I think there is some reasons to be a bit concerned. I mean, for one thing, you have I feel like they need a pass rusher. They need someone who can just go out there and win one-on-one matchups consistently, and they don't really have that, and it's a real problem that they have. I did think that their offense, it had some big plays. It seemed like they stalled a little bit early. So I think there's some real concerns to have if you're Baltimore. Again, because we're talking about them as being the team that wins the Super Bowl. So I think that there's some real concerns. And last week wasn't a fluke. They have some real issues they have to work out.
Yeah, I think that was the thing you saw with Mahomes that he was able to take advantage of, is that, they did a really good job of addressing the interior of their defense this past offseason, with getting guys like Patrick Queen looks phenomenal out of the draft. Calais Campbell, I think, looks really good in the middle too. But it's very easy for Mahomes bailed pretty easily when he needed to. He didn't have to a lot, but when he did, he had a lot of running room. And I agree with you. I do think they need that edge guy. And that could be the difference between this team winning it all and not. I mean, I felt like this game was pretty much like, the Ravens kept him at arm distance the whole time. But at the same time, this is a team that they should beat by 30, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to complain too much about a 14-point win in the NFL. It is fair to say, but I still think there is some concerns to have another kind of easy game against Cincinnati. Cincinnati's been a little scrappy, so maybe they could put up a fight, but it's still a game that you expect Baltimore to win. They play Philadelphia the week after, so again, the real test was against Kansas City, and they failed that test. So we'll see what they're able to do in the future. Any final thoughts on this one?
Yeah, it's just, the Washington thing kind of seems to run its course. Obviously, this was a big game that they probably weren't going to win, but, they got the Rams again next week before, maybe a winnable game against the Giants. But at the same time, there's just not enough that this offense, I think, there's not enough players in this offense that they're going to win enough games this season. I do like what the defense looks like. I like what Ron Rivera has done to keep this team competitive, but I do think that there's not enough pieces on offense for this team to win a lot of football games.
Yeah. Is Washington a dark horse candidate for Trevor Lawrence?
I mean, really, they could be. I mean, like I said, there's 3 quarterbacks that I would, if you're not sure about quarterback, there's 3 guys at the top of the draft that I would move mountains for. I wouldn't go full Bears on this and trade everything for it, but there's 3 quarterbacks that I would move a lot for to make sure that I have one of those 3 guys if I'm unsure about the position.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about a couple of teams who have had some issues with this position. The Jets found their guy with Joe Flacco coming back, perfect completion percentage. Don't know why I took him out. Terrible decision by them, and I'm glad they lost.
Yeah. This was a like you tried to make Dak Prescott my guy. This was a bad game for your boy Greg Williams, and a
Yeah.
very bad game for Adam Gase once again, which isn't really hard to do. But
Mhm.
this was a really
Right.
bad. This was a really really bad game for Greg Williams. First of all, he couldn't
Yeah.
stop Brett Rippon,
Uh,
and then just the constant headshots for absolutely
right.
no reason. With
Uh,
a guy with his reputation having the most
mhm.
undisciplined defense in football is not
Yeah.
a very good idea. That's probably something you should teach right away,
Mhm.
given his reputation. And yeah, I mean, this team, Frank Gore has 13 carries.
Yeah.
I mean, you just look at this team and you laugh. Chris Hogan's getting 8 targets in a game. There's just so many things. And then, I do have to grill, not that it's hard. It's an easy target to make fun of Adam Gase, but
Mhm.
I do. This isn't even making fun of. This is just like bad coaching and bad decision making. Why is Mekhi Becton playing this football game? Why is he
Right.
in? And this is
Right.
just horrible that your best player, and the sad thing is now that Adam's gone, Mekhi Becton is, I think, been really good the first couple weeks. He is your best player, and you're
Mhm.
throwing him in the game with a clearly injured shoulder for him to play 3 plays and then complain after the game that he took himself out of the game. He made the decision to take himself out of the game, is
Mhm.
what Adam Gase said. Just in a complete egregious thing from a head coach for a guy who likes to call himself an NFL coach. He's not going to
Mhm.
be, never mind head coach. He's never going to be the NFL coach again at the rate he's going. This is just completely awful decision making to risk your starting left tackle, your anchor. They needed a left tackle for ages, and now he's going to risk him for a game against the Broncos on week 4 for Thursday night on a short week. Just such a bad decision making. He clearly put him out there to save his job, and it was just absolutely stupid. How I joke that Donald Trump saved his job because of the media storm from that whole situation.
Uh,
But I mean, the fact that he had a job after jeopardizing his best player to beat the Broncos on week 4 in a short week is just one of the worst decisions I've ever seen.
Oh, Adam Gase will get another job. Here's what's going to happen. He won't coach anywhere next year. Mike McCarthy will have another bad year, gets fired from the Cowboys. Jerry Jones gets a promising phone call from Peyton Manning. Adam Gase in 2 years, the new head coach. I see Sauce Boss in the chat talking about how Vic Fangio probably hates Adam Gase, taking unnecessary shots at their quarterback for no reason when the game is over. I mean, this was a complete mess from the Jets. I do think that the one thing that Sam Darnold has now realized he has no choice but to do is to run with the football because teams are playing man. And, I know that the Broncos gave up 28 points and people are going to get on them for this. They're playing a system they don't like to play. They're playing man coverage constantly. This isn't what they like to do. This isn't how they built their team. The problem is that the Jets are just so bad against man coverage. On their offense is so bad versus man coverage that this is what Denver was doing. And Darnold sort of realized if I can just run with the football, I have an opportunity. That's pretty much all we got. I can't hand the ball off. We can't run the ball this way. Also, the fact that Joe Flacco is handing the ball off to Frank Gore in 2020 is just fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, there's just, we could do an entire podcast series for like 10 episodes on everything wrong with the Jets here. They continue to trot out 11 personnel, which is just Adam Gase's favorite. He continues to trot out 3 receivers out there when he actually has good tight ends to work with, and just refuses to use them for absolutely no reason. And that's the one part where the Broncos actually aren't very good. They're not very good at defending tight ends, and he still just refused to use his best option on offense. I mean, there's not enough that could be said about how bad this Jets team is. If I were Trevor Lawrence, I know Greenberg said this, but I wouldn't go to the NFL if Jets had the number 1 pick. I really wouldn't.
Yeah, I mean, people talked about it with Cincinnati. My kind of point was like, listen, Cincinnati isn't like that much worse than any other bad franchise. Like, there's a lot of bad franchises, but yeah, the Jets have been on a whole new level. I've hated the Jets for a while just because I don't like how they run. Like, I want the Jets to be good. They're just not. Let's talk some positives. Which means we can no longer talk about the Jets. We'll bring up. I mean, Melvin Gordon, not spectacular as a whole, but he did have over 100 yards on 23 carries, including a game-clinching touchdown. Jerry Jeudy had one of the best catches of the season so far. My guy there. And then he's actually my guy, not the Greg Williams slander. And then Tim Patrick also very good game. I thought this was again, it's not a great game from Denver. They would have liked to win by more, but at least they're getting the win here. And at least they're proving, even banged up, they're not the Jets, and not to have New England next week. So that's going to be tough.
Yeah, I mean, the rookie receivers, just a quick side note, have been really impressive. The first rounders, you have Judy Lamb looking awesome, Ayuk awesome, Jefferson awesome. Ruggs has been hurt, but I do like a lot of what he's seen. But yeah, I mean, this Broncos receiving group, it looks like it's kind of shaping into itself, even without Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
Patrick, Judy, Fant all look good. The commercial for this game, for the advertising this Thursday night game, was the resurgence of Melvin Gordon against the potential of Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we saw both. I mean, that was a nice run by Sam Darnold, and Gordon put in a pretty good effort. So, kudos to them for living up to the height of the advertisement. So, I mean, this Broncos team, obviously they were fortunate to have to play Brett Rippon against the Jets, but they look good. I mean, it was a good performance. They're clearly not the Jets. I guess you take that out of, that's your positive, is you're not the Jets, despite all these injuries.
Yeah, and I think part of why it was close was really, Rippon doing his best to throw the Jets in it there with those 3 interceptions. So I think that's going to be our show. I see someone in the chat asking, when is our Week 5 preview? The Sauce Boss, the great Sauce Boss, asking, when is our Week 5 preview? Let's see. I think I'm trying to think about it right now. We'll do this. We'll do this on the air. Very unprofessional of us. I'm trying to think, because I believe there's going to be a Rays game. I don't want to see if I can try to avoid podcasting during that, because the whole point of being a full-time YouTuber is I can watch sports when I want to. Let's see. So it'll be on Wednesday. The Rays game starts at 7. Would it work for you if we did it at 11 my time, 10 your time on Wednesday?
Yeah, that works for me. Okay. I'm good whenever, so
gotcha.
We'll do that.
Okay, 11 p.m. Eastern time. That's 10 p.m. Central. Definitely check us out on that one. And you can always there tend to be notifications. So or at least if you check the video on Wednesday, we always do it on Wednesdays. Check my YouTube channel; it'll show up there. Kyle, any final thoughts on fun Week 4? What are your thoughts heading into New England Patriots versus Kansas City?
It's just so annoying that we get into this situation and Cam's not going to be there. Of course, the conspiracy theory goes that Bill Belichick gave Cam COVID so that we don't have to show our cards to the Chiefs. They're going to have to figure out on the fly in the playoffs, despite having 15 weeks of evidence of what Cam likes to do in this offense. Not playing him against the Chiefs is going to be the difference maker. I mean, it's just such a bummer to see it. Obviously, it's okay that I don't think it's going to affect us much against the Broncos, but I did really want to see this game. I was getting kind of excited for it, seeing them compete against, we've talked about the potential of this Patriots team because they have looked good in the first 3 weeks. If you want to compare yourself to the very best, this is the very best. This is as good as it gets. And, they're going to trot out there with Brian Hoyer. They're going to use they have all 5 running backs back, plus Jakob Johnson. So they have Damian Harris, they have J.J. Taylor, they have Sony Michel, they have Rex Burkhead, they have James White back after his whole family incident thing. Thankfully, he is back. So we have 5 running backs back. So you're going to guarantee that this is probably going to be run about 55 times this game, of the 70 plays. And can they control the clock and keep Mahomes off the field? Now, of course, Mahomes may only need like 10 plays to win this game, but that's basically how the Patriots are going to run this. So we'll see what happens. I think the Patriots secondary will be more prepared and probably play a little better than Baltimore's did. I thought there was just a lot of bad decisions from Baltimore's. I think New England's can do better in that regard. But at the same time, Clyde Edwards-Helaire for Steve Levy. Clyde Edwards-Helaire could have a huge game in this one because we're going to dedicate a lot to stopping Mahomes. So,
yeah. Are you concerned at all about Gilmore? Hasn't just look at his numbers. 98.7 passer rating against, several penalties. Does have an interception. Also has given up a touchdown. Also is giving up a reception percentage of 66.7, 16.8 yards per reception. Any concern for Gilmore, or was it just one bad game? Just a couple bad games, one against the biggest one being against Seattle.
I mean, I'm a little concerned, and if he's shopped this offseason, I'm not going to be surprised. But at the same time, like, I mean, I think it would have been almost foolish to not expect regression based off of last season's performance. And, that was my thing about the Patriots, was that even if they play their defense's top 10, I don't think they're going to finish number one this season because, I think I mapped it out during one of our preseason episodes. The team that finishes number one in defense the last 3 years hasn't finished top five. They've been 6, 7, 8, somewhere around that range, but they haven't been top five. So there's obvious regression just from a year-to-year perspective. And if you have no linebackers and you have one guy to pass or for a pass rusher, you're expected to cover for a long time. Especially the Patriots love to run man to man. That's pretty much what they do. That's their calling card with all these athletic players in their secondary. And he's acted as cover for a long time without any good pass rushers.
Yeah, should be fun. It sucks that once again we don't get Patriots, Chiefs in like the way we wanted, where last year there was like all those bad calls that went against New England. The year before there was the coin flip that once it goes against Kansas City and that sort of weird system. So and now again, maybe come postseason that could happen. But yeah, any final thoughts on the week before we sign off?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, that I felt like this was a very clear indicator of who's real and who's not this week. I feel like we started to separate a lot of teams. You could probably cross off a lot of teams for making the playoffs. Texans. So, I mean, I just feel like it was a clear, more and more, we're going to learn more about these teams, but I feel like this was the first week where we're really learning about who's contending and who's, not to be cliche, who's contending and who's pretending. And I feel like that started this week.
What a great line. You come up with that yourself?
Yeah, I did.
Nice. I like it. Yes. So we know the Eagles are for real.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to be 6-9-1 and make the playoffs. So they got that going for them.
All right. Well, until next time, see us Wednesday as we preview the division leading Eagles and all other games. Until next time, have a good one.